I'm now speaking with Dorothy Cole from Benoit, Mississippi. Dorothy, first of all, I want to welcome you to the show here, and I really appreciate the fact that you want to discuss what it was like growing up in Mississippi. You know, how far back do your thoughts go, you know, in your childhood?
About till I was I can remember things when I was age of 3.
And what are your earliest memories?
My earliest memories is my mom, they bought flour and cornmeal in 25-pound bags and stuff. And what they did was, in flour, and what they did was made me a cotton sack out of the flour bags, the flour sacks that they did. And I had to pick cotton. I wasn't allowed to chop the cotton because they was afraid I'd cut too much down, but I was picking cotton at age 3.
You know, how do you deal with that? I mean, you know, going to bed every night thinking that, that anything can happen to you or your parents, and having to look forward to going to the field? Even
as a small child, so much was going on. Most nights I didn't fall asleep until the light started to come through the windows. Even as a small child, I didn't sleep well. It could have been my imagination, but even my perception of the sun didn't shine as bright those days. When after a lynching or after a killing or something, the sun didn't shine as bright in the sky. And it happened to me more than once. So I can't possibly say that was my imagination. That it was not a bright sunny day.
So did y'all go to church then?
Yeah, we went to the little church down the road.
So at the church, was it a black preacher?
Mm-hmm. At the predominant black, yes. But this church was sitting on the plantation owner's property.
And was the preacher progressive? I mean, did he say?
I've never heard anybody say anything ever down there.
What do you mean?
I've never heard anyone protest or speak out or anything about what was going on.
I mean, but were his sermons generally speaking, based on praying for a better day, or?
No, he just went talked about the Bible and, but nothing about a better day or anything about what was going on in the community. Nobody ever talked about what was going on in the community. It was like a hush-hush. Everything was just like hush-hush, even after it happened. Even when the 7-year-old who was playing in the ditch with some little white boys came up dead, nobody said a word.
Why aren't you why aren't you psychologically damaged today, and why aren't more black people?
My damage didn't, that the racism and stuff wasn't talked about, but be honest with you, a lot of my fear came from right within my own home, because I was a lot of people might not want to believe, but I was a target child growing up. I looked different from all the rest, so I was a target child. So a lot of
you was a what?
Target.
What is that?
That means people have a house full of kids and one kid is singled out and beat on a lot. And that's where a lot of my fear. I worked at the YW, the Battle Women's Shelter here for a few years. And they wanted to know how come I wasn't hostile towards the white people the way that blacks were treated in the South. But how can you worry about the outside world when you got so much turmoil going on in your own house that you're growing up in? I didn't have opportunity to form a whole lot of opinions about what was going on outside when I had so much going on inside.
Was that a characteristic that happened across the board, or did within each different family they had their own unique issues going on?
Well, I think in our house was far different than most, because I talked to a lot of family members and they didn't even know how badly I was being treated growing up in the house. So when I came here to Fort Wayne and I started working with women of all race and colors, I had no opinion formed about racism, because my home life, being in that house, just to show you, the first time I remember being beat till I blacked out, it was the spring I turned 3. Second time I got beaten, the first time was by my mom. The second time I remember that year that I got beaten till I was blacked out, it was by my dad.
As you being a little girl.
Yes, I based this on that I was the youngest kid in the house. I'm 3.5 years older than the next kid in the house. So when there was no baby, until I was 3.5. So the spring I turned 3, my mom beat me until I blacked out. And then the fall, my dad beat me until I blacked out.
But I mean, why would they beat you?
Well, my mom, I was a critter collector. You know, if I'm in the ground, I played with frogs. I formed my own little world, you know. And I was down in front of my mom and dad. It was in spring, and I was down on the ground digging for critters out of, you know, ants and bugs and stuff in the ground. And they pulled me into their conversation. And they asked me which one of them that I liked the best, my mom or my dad. Well, at this point, Dad had never hit me. So, of course, I said, my dad. And then Mom said to me, well, you kissed that, well, she had a white poodle dog. And she said, well, you kissed that dog's butt. Well, at 3 years old, I told her, you kiss it. And she beat me until I blacked out. And I had no idea what I'd done wrong.
And your dad?
Well, my dad, in the fall, it was in October, my sister was born in October. It had rained so much that day. We had chickens and pigs and horses and cows all in our backyard because, you know, people was self-supporting of themselves. And he got ready to go out that night to feed the animals out there in the barnyard in the back. And my brother and I wanted to go with him. And he put us out there, and he put us up in that square hole up in the barn where you pitch hay out through, you know, you saw the little house on the prairie. And my brother, who was 2 years older than me, he kept leaning out of that hole. And I kept telling him to stop, that he was going to fall. And he kept leaning out, and then he lost his balance. And I grabbed he had no suspenders. I grabbed his suspenders. I'm just 3.5. And I remember his suspenders just pulling my little fingers out like that. And he fell down into all that manure, who was probably 6 or 8 inches deep. And he told Daddy that I pushed him out. I'm 3.5. Daddy got the bridle and stuff because Daddy still had horses then. He was the last one in the community to get a car. And he got the thing that he used on the horses, and he whipped me until I blacked out. I don't remember him stop beating me. All I remember is being in the house sometime later, and I gasped for air, and like the lights came on in the house. I mean, it's like everything started to light up. I was out cold, I guess. And I heard them, and 3 of them were sitting over on the bed, and I heard my brother say to them, well, everybody called me Jean. He said, Jean didn't push me. She was trying to catch me. And that's what I had told Daddy before he beat me. And it's almost like it hurt me so bad to hear them say that, and to hear the 3 of them laugh, that I blacked out again. They didn't come and take care of me. They had me sitting over across the room on a little bench while the 3 of them sit on the bed. And that was the beating that my dad gave me. And then Mama found every excuse in the book to beat me the whole while I was growing up.
So now, was this from frustrations in their lives, and they just took it out on you, or?
I didn't know what it was. All I know, I turned out to be a pleaser. I think that's the reason I've gotten into bad relationships. I always tried to please them growing up. And a matter of fact, when my mom died in 2001, we had to bring her remains from Tennessee back up here. And my brother, who still lived, he was alive still, we got in a limo to leave D.O. McCombs to go out West Jefferson. And they proceeded, we were all talking in the limo, and he proceeded to tell me that Daddy wasn't my daddy. Well, the guy who I'd called Daddy all my life had been dead for 26 years at that time. But they told me in the limo as we go behind Mom's remains out West Jefferson that Dad wasn't my dad. So it all kind of made sense. I wasn't accepted in the house. my first day of school, I mean, Mom never stopped them from teasing me and calling me names. I was jughead and keghead and waterhead. And I'm thinking, I grew up thinking that I was deformed. So so it all made sense to me. Because she always laughed when they was teasing me, no matter how long I begged her to tell them to just leave me alone. She never did. And then they were older. There was my older sister and brother, and they were older. So if I hit them with my hand, and then I hit my sister one day with my hand, and she started to come after me. Because I wanted them to stop, and I knew the only way I could get them to stop is Mama had to beat me. So I would hit them. Yeah, Mama 2 or 3 years younger than them, but Mama would beat me. That's the only way I could get the teasing to stop. So by the time I went to school, I was so ashamed and thinking I'm deformed that I couldn't even open my mouth to read. When I had to stand up in class, I couldn't even do that. And I tell people now, I stuttered. I was so ashamed and so embarrassed that when I tried to speak, I would stutter. But now I tell people, people need to shut me up. But anyway, I went to school, my first day of school, and if I had anybody tell me there was nothing wrong with me, my first day of school, I was terrified. And what happened my first day of school? 2 boys, one boy told the other boy that I was his girlfriend, my very first day of school. And they got to fighting over me. One chased the other one up on the outdoor john, and at recess, and all the kids was laughing, and I am bawling hysterically. Because now all of the attention is on me, and I'm deformed in my mind.
So how did you overcome all this? I mean, you just don't show any outward signs of that type of, I don't know if abuse is the right word, or that type of socialization.
Well, I finally decided that I was going to be the best that I could be for myself. You know, that's probably the best way I can put. Once I would look at my style of my hair, but I would not look at my face. So for years, even after I had kids, I didn't know what I looked like. I really didn't know that I was not deformed, that I did have a full face, probably from a part of Indian descent or something, the high cheekbone. But I didn't look at myself, and what I did, and what all you've been drilled into you as a kid, you really believe it if nobody's telling you there's nothing wrong with you. So some of the things that I went through, I tried to pass on to other people, and let them know there's nothing wrong with you. I do my crusade to help other people. People come up to me, I make eye contact. People come up to me, I can be in any store, next thing I know, people just telling me their problems.
Why is, how do you do that? I mean, you have a desire to work with people who have those similar issues. How did you, instead of being, what I'm trying to say is, instead of being mean and fighting people yourself, beating up on people, or harming people, why did you never go that way? And why did you just want to help people?
Why not want to go the opposite? I didn't want to do to others what had been done to me.